Hey, hey, man.
How are you today?
I'm good.
You look
Been
good.
out enjoying the spring weather. Just been good for my psyche. Just we drove down to from Nashville down to Chattanooga, which is only about a 2 hour drive, and back this morning to
Uh,
run a quick errand. And all the redbud trees are out right now. It's a beautiful drive. So
oh, wow. Well, maybe they'll all be that way when we leave on Monday, too, going down to Florida to NCSG. We're going to a trade show.
yep.
It'll be fun. Thanks for the love, Chuck. Really appreciate that. Man, so every
Thanks,
year,
Chuck. Appreciate it. He
every
wished me
year,
happy birthday. Sorry.
oh, well, yes, yesterday was your birthday. You look like a really just smashing 35-year-old. I just got
Yeah.
to you were
Right.
wearing it well. Every year, this Bright Local, which is they specialize in local SEO and just local listings and all that. They do a consumer report based on reviews. And so this recently came out. And so I wanted to make sure that we give everybody updates on the latest finding because I think that there are people still to this day, it just amazes me that don't really understand the value of reviews. And but there's some things that have changed those. So I think that's really, really interesting. So I want to talk about some of those, nuanced things that are changing. They're not huge change, but just, these little nuanced things that change from time to time. Um, so the one thing that I think is really interesting, a lot of people don't think that when they go to McDonald's or they go to, I don't know, Quick Mart or all these franchise places all around, the food places, the UPS. I mean, all these places are franchise. And what they're finding is that brands are starting to really pay attention to the reviews in those local markets because, and I'm going to look over here as I got my cheat notes. 91% of consumers believe that the local branch reviews give influence and perception of the company overall. So brands are starting to really pay attention to those local reviews that the franchise places are actually getting, and in some cases taking action. And I've seen that. There's been several franchises lately that I've read have closed um, locations down, have pulled the franchise away from the people because it's hurting the brand.
Yeah.
So just know that, I mean, that this is brands paying really big attention to local. So I
And what
think
this
that's
means for you, if you're not a big brand and you're wondering why are you talking about big brands when most of your clients are local home service businesses. If you're in an industry that has, like a Roto-Rooter national brand in your market, you need to understand that consumers are no longer saying, "Oh, I'll only work with a locally based business or a locally owned business. I don't want to work with one of the big chains." They're looking at reviews, and if the reviews are as good as yours, that national brand is in the running. I mean, that national brand is one they would consider working with. So you need to understand that because of reviews and because of consumers' attitudes toward reviews for national brands, some of those national brands that you may not have thought, oh, my consumers would never go with that brand or that big company because they're not locally owned. You need to make sure that you're competing in terms of your reviews because uh, there's looky loos out there who are starting to say, hey, all things being equal, if their service is better, I'm going with the better service. I don't care if they're owned locally.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that keeps coming up, and I keep hearing it in different formats and different ways, people are starting to talk about Amazon. That Amazon kind of has set the bar. So even people who love dealing with local companies and local businesses, it's amazing when you ask, "Do you use Amazon?" No, and the why do you use Amazon? It's easy. Amazon's kind of spoiled the public. So that's the other thing with reviews. You got to make it easy. You got to make these things as easy as possible for people to do. You got to make it easy for them to book, easy for them, to set the appointment, easy for them to set the appointment when they want to set the appointment. It's the easy button.
Yeah. And like easy chair, easy. Like
Yeah.
they shouldn't have to get out of their chair while they're watching TV to do business with you and get you booked and scheduled to come.
Yeah. It's just crazy. So the other thing is business responses to reviews. So this was kind of this was a shock and not a shock. I know that people pay attention to businesses responding to reviews. What I didn't know that this one, 88% of consumers prefer businesses that respond to all of their reviews, not just the negative ones. And we've been telling people for years, respond to all your reviews. Make sure you're responding to all of them. And, 9 times out of 10, they're like, I don't have time to respond to all the reviews. I barely have time to respond to the negative ones. And so that's a problem. And that's going to lead me into this next one, which I thought was really surprising. Did you see that? 58% of consumers actually prefer the responses they're getting from AI as opposed to from the ones they're getting from the business itself.
Well, I can imagine why too. I mean, the typical busy business owner, their response to a positive review is, "Thanks for the great review!" ! And that's it. Whereas the AIs are going, "Thank you so much for your kind words. We really enjoy doing business over in such and such part of town, and and make sure you tell all your friends too, and we'll take just as good care of them as we did you." And it's engaging. It's actually friendly, and so the way that they're telling this, though, that people prefer AI responses is because you can like other people's reviews on some of these review platforms. And the review responses can be liked as well. Did you find this helpful? That kind of a thing. And the ones that get more thumbs up and more likes and more replies and more engagement, 58% of them seem to be AI generated. And I thought that was actually really cool, especially because, that's something that we're trying to help our clients with.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. I knew that it was pretty high just based on some of the reviews that I've seen generated by AI. And I think it's really great because we now can do that with some of the software that we have. So if that's something that anybody out there is interested in, give us a holler because we can actually set you up with that. But that was surprising to me. I mean, I knew it was going to be high, but I didn't think it would be over 50%, honestly. So that was interesting.
Yeah.
So the other thing that's really interesting is social media's role in the business reviews. So one of the things that happens is not all social media have a platform that says leave reviews here. Facebook does. I know Yelp does, whether that's a social media, it's more of a listing platform. But, some of these places have places for reviews. And of course, Yellow Pages have always done that. Google's the big one. However, a lot of times reviews are left in the content on social media. So people are actually posting, the one that I always remember was back in the day when X was Twitter. And somebody just came unglued at Comcast, and there was an amazing chain of just people, haters, the worst. They're the this, and you don't really think of that as a review, but guys, that's a review.
Yeah.
And so those are the things you have to watch, as well as in the content of social media is where people are going to leave reviews a lot of times, and not necessarily on a quote unquote review platform.
And people will dogpile it. I mean, that's what we call it, is the dogpile effect. And a negative review and a positive review, if it's heartfelt and sincere, if people feel the emotion that the reviewer is trying to convey, either positive or negative, and they have similar experiences, they will dogpile the heck out of that thing. And suddenly, what you thought might have been just one isolated review, it's contained, it's no problem, suddenly becomes 128 negative reviews in less than 2 hours. I mean, it can go really bad really quick.
Well, and Comcast being a national brand too, they're getting negative reviews from 50 states and 1,000 different areas. When you're there, hopefully if you get one or two, then you can mitigate that and take care of it. But just remember, don't not look at the content that's being out there. And I'll tell you another thing. If you're known in your area, like if you're in a BNI group or you're in the chamber or if you're in another group of some kind online, you've got to monitor that too, because those reviews can also come across there. People can talk negatively about you on those as well. So you just got to be aware that, this is out there. And so we have to be watching in a lot of different places. Not that it's fun, but it's something that we have to do. It's just part of it. And diversity of review platforms too. I thought this was interesting. This to me was a pretty big change because in the past, Google has always been supreme. Now, we're seeing 40, 30, 32 to 41% of your consumers are now looking into 2 different platforms or 3 just to see how you work.
Yeah. I mean, it was for a long time, it was people had their favorite review site that they tuned into. Certain parts of the country, it was Yelp, and in certain parts of the country, it might have been something else, depending on the industry and the nature of the service. It could have been Angie or, some of those type lists as well. Google usually was always the king, or is still the king of reviews. And in fact, as an agency, that's where we encourage our clients to spend the majority of their effort, is trying to get those Google reviews. Bang for the buck, they're still the most important. But this was telling. This, as an agency, I paid attention to this because this shows that there's a shift, that consumers are saying, yes, Google, but also, I'm going to look some other places too, because I think they're starting to understand if the business is savvy and they're gaming the system or trying to get a whole bunch of Google reviews, but they're ignoring all the other ones, perhaps there are more legitimate, unforced, unsolicited reviews that they need to read on some of these other platforms too. So they're looking for kind of a blended, combined approach now to really understand how well a business does. And that's telling. That's something we need to respond to.
Yeah, and here's what I'm seeing, and I'm seeing it in a lot of neighborhood and community forums. We have a little forum up here where I am, just in this cul-de-sac that we have. And a couple of times somebody has just posted, hey, I found this company on Google that it says it's really good at carpet cleaning. Has anybody here experienced, this company with carpet cleaning? I'd love to know if they're really as good as everybody says. So that's the other thing that's happening, is people are reaching out to neighbors, reaching out on these platforms, reaching out on Nextdoor, these groups, and saying, hey guys, I saw this company's supposed to be great in this area. Can anybody here back it up? So that's another thing that I've seen, and it kind of goes along with that. So it's really, really interesting.
Yeah,
it's
for
really,
sure.
really interesting. So, hey, Jessica, thanks for the thumbs up. Appreciate that as well. Thank you so much for being here. And then we're going to talk about trends in consumer interaction with reviews. Now, this did not surprise me. Did you read it?
I'm reading it now. I just want to make sure
that it's just stable.
Yeah.
Yeah. People are looking at reviews.
So we've reached the saturation point, is what that tells me. All the major reviews, every year that this one comes out, we've seen, for a number of years, this was 6-7 years ago, it would jump pretty big. It was somewhere in the like high 50s, and then it would jump up to 70, and the next year it would jump up to 85, and then we got into the 90s, and it started, I mean, the 90% or more, and it started kind of creeping up slowly, percentage a point or two every year. But the last one was 98% of, and some say 99, but it's 98% of people look at reviews. So what that tells me is that there was very little room to grow. I mean, in terms of the percentage of people who are using reviews. So it doesn't surprise me. I mean, we plateaued there, and it plateaued at the highest possible number, really.
So, I mean, it still is, I think, one of the top things that you absolutely have to do for a business, especially local. If you're a national business, you still want reviews. That's absolutely there. People don't pay quite as much attention to them, but man, locally, people really do pay attention to reviews. So it is an absolute must do. And Terry, thank you for the thumbs up too. I really appreciate that. So now that we see the trends, okay, so let's talk a little bit about, how do you get reviews? I mean, if anybody is struggling with reviews, how in the world do you go get them? And it's interesting because I found that there's two main times, if you will. One is right after the service when people are happy, and that could be why your technician is there. The other is, isn't it like 10 days afterwards?
It's 10 days to 2 weeks. So 10 to 14 days seems to be another sweet spot right now, which is long enough for people to have, for services where the service may not be observed, like the level of service or the quality of service or the benefit of the service may not be observed in the home for several days or weeks before they use their fireplace again, or before they, need to turn on their heat or whatever. And so that lag period gives them enough time in certain industries and certain kinds of businesses, or even certain times of year, for those reviews to come in, because by that time they will have fully appreciated what they paid for.
Yeah. And I know there's a lot of people that put them on invoices. I've seen both positive and negative things about that. People don't normally leave reviews after they've had to pay money. They're kind of not in the mood. And I've read that, but then I've also read, hey, it's another touch. So,
Yeah.
I haven't read anything definitive on that. But I'll just tell you that, you've got to ask for those reviews, and you got to have a methodology for asking for those reviews. And I think you have to have several methodologies for asking.
Yeah, I agree. Like the main methodology plus some backup methodologies,
exactly,
or systems, right? Yeah, Chuck has a great point to that point. I found the best practice is to require that the technician's responsibilities include at the end of service to ask for a review, and the company should have a standard operating procedure on how the tech would follow through to capture this valuable marketing tool. The ROI is huge. Create the habit and reap the rewards.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Absolutely, 100%. Thanks, Chuck, for that. I think that's very true. And I really like, we've got something called the Spark Review engine that helps technicians do it right after service. But we also have technology that follows up and asks for reviews after the fact as well. And I think you need both. I really do. And there's a lot of places that have the follow-up technology. I find that there's not as many that have the right on the spot to do it right there. So that's interesting. Hey, Jerry, thank you for being here too. Really appreciate that. Just love the fact that you guys are always here. You want to say anything else, guys, about reviews? What are your experiences with reviews? Do you get a lot of them? Do you not get them? Do you struggle with them? And Carter, do you have any other advice?
Yep, definitely do. I think that based on this survey, a couple of things that jump out at me: the need to start diversifying your review portfolio or platform portfolio, if you will. So changing it up a little bit. Maybe 3 weeks out of the month you're going after Google reviews, but 1 week out of the month you're really looking at Facebook or Yelp or some other place where you can get some good reviews present, so that no matter where people are looking, they're seeing reviews. The second thing is consumers have become more savvy, right? They're paying attention more to reviews, which means that some of the signals that maybe they weren't savvy enough to realize before now are important to them. And that's going to mean things like the most recent reviews, right? They're going to be paying attention to recency. How many months has it been since the last 5-star review here? That's going to matter to them. It may not have, it may have escaped their notice before, but it's not going to much longer if it already isn't. So making sure that you have a diligent program in place to constantly be getting new reviews and new and positive reviews. So train your people, make sure that they know exactly how to do it. I mean, training your people can be as simple as a stand-up meeting, maybe once a month, where you just take 2 or 3 minutes to say, hey, I just want to shout out technician Bobby over here. Bobby, you got a review and they mentioned your name in the review. That's awesome. You did a great job. Did you ask for that review or did they just do? Oh, you did ask for it. Okay, awesome. $50 bonus for you this week. Really appreciate it. Anyone else that does that, same thing for you. If they mention your name, we'll give you a bonus. So, that kind of a thing. But then role play with them, right? Once a month, just, real quickly, call one of the techs up and go, okay, I'm Mrs. Smith or I'm Mr. Smith. Ask me for a review. Like, how are you going to do that? We're at the end of the appointment. How are you going to ask me for a review? And then let them role play with you, right? And you push back and have some fun with it, whatever. But you're building those chops with your people so that they don't fear asking for the review. They start to feel more confident doing that. They start to understand not only is this expected behavior for me as an employee at this business, but I'm rewarded when I do it because it is that important.
So I'm going to say something that happened at my house just recently. I had a technician out to look at something here, and when he was done and they fixed it, it was great because I've had this ongoing off again, on again issue with the thermostat. And they fixed the doggone thing, which I was absolutely thrilled with. And he just said, Mr. Hill, do you mind leaving a review? And I said, no, I'll be more than happy to leave a review. And he said, well, if you'll wait just a minute, I'd like to send you a picture so that you can upload that with your review. Would that be okay? And I said, sure. And so he got my phone number, my cell phone number. He actually already had my cell phone number because he had it in his phone and called me and told me he was on his way. But he verified my cell phone number, took a picture with the other technician in front of the thermostat, and then send it to me that I was able to send a good review and upload the picture. So guess what just happened? Google loves pictures. Yeah. And so, he knew that I was pleased, and he just took it from there and said, hey, do you mind doing this? I was, no, not at all. It's easy to do. You put a picture there with the review. Man, I thought, that's brilliant. Do more of that.
Yeah, it really is a good idea.
We've always said, get the consumer to leave reviews, talk to them about, taking pictures of their finished product or whatever. And now they went one step further. Instead of counting on me to take the picture when I've got to do a review, they went one step further. So I thought that was great. And Karen Hatcher's in the house. Nice to see you, Karen. I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for stopping by. That's awesome.
Terry's weighing in with a different perspective, which I think is good. Something to talk about. Personally, I think having the tech asking for a review in the field is putting the customer on the spot. I prefer having the office contact the customer via email after the fact for a follow-up. I think that's better. In the follow-up email, provide photos of their chimney and additional information about the smoking problems or damper clamps, etc., something that pertains to their system. Just my humble opinion. I think it is putting them on the spot, absolutely, but I also know it works. And so It's also putting the customer on the spot when you hand them a $7,000 estimate to go ahead and ask them, so what do you think, Mrs. Smith? Are you ready to go ahead and get this work scheduled, this needed work scheduled? You're putting them on the spot, but you have their best interests at heart. In this case, it is a little bit of a selfish ask, and it is a little bit putting them on the spot. But the companies that do it this way, we see them getting 5 and 6 times the number of reviews that other ways of doing it net. So to me, it's okay. I mean, it's an expected part of the exchange now. Consumers are, like I said, they're becoming more savvy and realize that, many businesses that are doing a good job at asking for reviews are setting the expectation early on that the review is just part of the transaction here. It doesn't end when you give me your credit card number and it rings through. This actually ends after you have paid and then also left us some feedback or a review. So it's expected. I don't think it's quite the put upon as you might think it is. My humble opinion.
Well, and I think sometimes the technician has to be smart enough to read the room as well. We have to trust them to do that. But I'm with you because I've just seen the results over the other. So, but again, if you're the type of person that crafts an email after every single job and crafts it and details it to that customer, if you've got the amount of time to be able to do that, that may be a great way to get reviews. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, if you've got that kind of time, what we find often is people just don't have that kind of time. They're on to the next one and on to the next one, on to the next one. So, yeah.
Terry, again, thanks for these great questions, Terry. How do you feel about asking for a review when you've just delivered really bad news about their chimney, like expensive repairs? This is a great question. If you've just given them something to chew on and it could go either way, my thing is leave it up to the technician. If they feel like they have a connection with that customer and that customer is not mad at them for giving them the truth about the situation, then it may be okay to go ahead and ask for a review. But it may be more appropriate to wait until that work is completed and you've taken care of them, had a chance to really show them what your service can be like, even when it's repairs that they wish they didn't have to do before you ask for the review. And that oftentimes what we see in those situations is that almost inevitably part of the review is, I did not understand why all of this work was necessary, but they really took the time to educate me and explain it and tell me why we needed to go ahead and get this done. And then they came out and they did a really great job. So I'm really appreciative and thankful for them, and the work that they did. So that's maybe the best advice.
It kind of goes into what Lou just said. So it really depends on how you deliver it and how they respond. Yeah. I think that's very true.
Yeah.
Very true. No, that's great, guys. That's good. Fantastic questions and all of them very, very valid. And it is really hard sometimes because sometimes you think you do a great job and for whatever reason, the customer is just ornery. I mean, sometimes it doesn't matter how good you do. They're just ornery. And if you know that, don't ask. If you feel that, and don't ask for a review. So some of it is just being intuitive, and I think letting your technicians have the ability to make those decisions is really good for them too.
And that becomes part of the employee coaching process too. I mean, if they have a requirement to ask every person for a review, but they also have discretion to choose not to ask somebody for a review, then when you as the owner realize and you're going through and realizing, okay, they didn't ask this person for a review, maybe there's a reason, you can go to that tech and say, hey, I noticed you didn't ask Mr. Smith for a review when you did the big repair job. Is there for that? Was he upset about anything? Did you pull back or decide not to give a review because of a reason that we need to be aware of? That can be really helpful in terms of righting the ship or getting ahead of a negative review or making a touch with Mr. Smith just to make sure that he feels like he's been well taken care of and that all his issues have been addressed. So, that's a valid thing for sure.
So doesn't Yelp say that you're not supposed to ask for Yelp reviews? Yelp asks, that's exactly right. It's against their policy that they don't want you to ask for reviews because they think that people will just naturally give reviews because you're either doing great work or you're really lousy. We know by just psychology that 7 people out of 10, if they have bad service, is going to give you a bad review. 2 out of 10 will give you a good one with good service. So that'll kind of, so that's why Yelp has such a bad reputation in a lot of places, is because there's so many bad reviews on it, because they suppress and actually stamp down the good reviews because they don't believe that people, would get these many good reviews unless they're asking for it. So, yeah.
The
Yelp,
simple way around this with Yelp is just a language trick. Instead of asking them for the review, ask them if it would be okay to send them some places that they could leave a review if they were interested in doing that, right? You're not asking them for a review. You're asking them if you can make it easier for them by giving them some links.
That's good. All right, guys, we have hit our 30-minute threshold. We're over 2 minutes. We're doing good, Carter. So Spark Live is also released as a podcast on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Podvine, or your favorite player. And next week, we are going to be live from NCSG. If you guys are there and you have questions that we can actually answer live, that would be great. If you stop by our booth, it's 516. And just hand us a question, hand us whatever you want to hand us.
Cash, credit, check.
Yeah, it's okay. Just come by the booth and talk to us and say hello. We always love seeing everybody. So, but we are going to do that next week. And until then, hey guys, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and I hope we see all of you next week at NCSG. Oh, we got another comment. Hold on. Oh, here we go. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you. I appreciate your involvement too. Thank you.
You bet. Bye-bye, guys.